Good night, everybody. We are back. I'm back for another video. Johnny Nobise history and archaeology. Today we're going to be talking about Gladiator, Roman fighting, Roman sport fighting. The most gory, gruesome, and barbaric way to be a gladiator in ancient Rome. And today we're going to discover what's going to be here for our philosophy for today. It's called the Gladiator philosophy. A gladiator philosophy swordsman from the Gladiator sword was armed conduct who entertained audiences in the Roman Republic and Roman Empire, invited confrontations, and their gladiators, wild animals, command criminals. Some gladiators were volunteered to ask their lives in illegal and social standing by appearing in the area. Most were despised as slaves, schooled under harsh conditions, socially marginalized, and segregated even in death. So now I was thinking, our philosophy is only about a decade ago, millions of years ago, they were fighting hard for their country. And not only that, some of the emperors were suffering, so they had to take part too. They had to take their part. What they do? They had no choice but to fight. Fight to survive. It's a deadly trap. They were in trouble. Their village were in trouble. So they had no choice but to fight back then. Until one of the soldiers died. So they made a Colosseum. If I never heard of it, it's called the Gladiator Colosseum. The Roman Empire. Now, the region in gladiator combat is open to debate. This evidence of the funeral rates during the Public War in the 3rd century BC. However, after it rapidly became also future politics and social life in the Roman world is probably led to its youth and ever less the costly games. So I was thinking, and this all started since the 1st century. It was when they turned the Olympic Games into a very gruesome and violent combat sport ever that's created in the first century. How cool is that? But they had to do it. No chance, no how. They had to build a Colosseum in the years, and since the 1st century began, it was all hell broke loose. 1st century, and they were fighting. The gladiator games lasted nearly 1,000 years. Nearly thousands of years. That's a long time. We wasn't even born until that time came. We wasn't even born yet. I mean, in this since that time. Sorry, made a mistake on that. Yeah, man, we as decades now, we wasn't even here. These guys were here. These guys that were here thousands of years ago, they were here to join this this fight club that they made. Fight sport is a deadly one. A deadly fighting sport for the fans to watch. In Rome, it's a fight to the death. Flight survival. But now it says reaching their peak between the 1st century BC and the 2nd century AD. The games finally declined during the early 5th century after the bullshit of Christianity, and as the state church of the Roman Empire in 3 AD. Although these hunts continued into the 6th century. The gladiators. Well, we can read more about it. So all this time, the gladiators were fighting. The Romans. So all this time, the Romans were fighting so hard. In that time, BC, 1st century BC, their game started. They had all these guys just hello. They had no choice but to join in. It was a death trap. The gladiators, man. The most gruesome and barbaric warriors to become a warrior. I tell you, the most gruesome and barbaric ways to become a warrior in that time. They were extreme fighters, fighting for survival. There's no games, real fight, real survival, real deadly fights. And they keep fighting until one of the warriors had died. They tried when they lost, they got killed. So in the earliest types of Gladiator were named after Roman enemies of that time. The Triglavian, and Gold, and the Sliheavy arm is agility helped to probably be the most popular type. It was named Sepulchre as the goal named Milo was I forgot that name. Whatever that name is. Once these former enemies had been conquired to absorb into Roman Empire. In the mid-Republican US, each side seems to have fought against similar or additional type. In the later Republic, the early Empire, vicious fantasy types were introduced and were set against this similar but complementary types. For example, the bare-head nipple, Lazarus, Netman, armored and Oday for left arm or shoulder, pitiless neck, triple dagger, against the more heavily armored Helmeter sector. Most deception, most depictions of the Gladiator show most common and popular types. So, passing lottery references to others allow their temporary extortions. Other narratives introduced around this time, including gladiators who fought in the triads and cars of from horseback. Trades and the gladiators was it wide expired wide. The subject of the official supervision. The Rome's military success produced is simply the soldier prisoners were who were distributed to use of the state state mines in the habit theaters and the sale that open market. For example, in the aftermath and Jewish revolt, the Gladiator schools reduced receiving the influx of Jews. Those rejected for the training would be sent straight to the arenas as Nazi hurtful ones. The best or the most robust was sent to Rome. In the Rome's military echoes, enemy soldiers who had surrendered or allowed their own capture and enslavement had been granted in enrichment, gift of life. Their training as gladiators who give them the opportunity, freedom of our honor in Eunice. Here they are. Here's a picture of how they destroyed those guys. This is based on a real story in ancient Rome. This is how they fought. They fought like this for the fans to see. The fans want to see blood. They want to see gore. They want to see barbaric stuff. Stuff that's cruel. Stuff that's brutal. Stuff that's evil. And this is how they did. They fight until one of them got killed. With a lot of slash and stab and scratch. Nasty scratch as well on their skins. Left a nasty wound until a painful death. This is how they do it. This is a real fight. Two angry men trying to kill each other in the sport, in the combat sport that they made. We never seen nothing like this before. This was only back in the old times. This is old school stuff. Old school way of fighting. That's the real stuff of fighting. Now nowadays, when you look on TV show, you see two men fighting, getting blooded up and stuff, but no one is not seriously knocked, or it's not fatally knocked out or dead or something. Because some people think fighting that they watch on TV is fake. But when you see something out like this, fighting like this out in the streets, where people get their heads smashed on the concrete after they fought on the streets, man, that's something that's real. That person that could have died, man, could have actually got killed. This is the fight or flight survival when it comes to real fighting. I'm telling you, man. Back then, all you gotta do is make tools because your village were in danger, man. We're in grave danger. A lot of enemies are trying to attack your village. So you need an army. You need someone to be by your side. Have an armor on your arm to protect and dodge and block, and have a sword on the other arm to fight with. Use your feet as well to kick away your enemies. Kick them away. You can also use your shield as a weapon as well to block and hit someone with it, because it's metal that's wrapped around your arms. You know what I'm saying? It's a big giant metal. All you gotta do is survive, bro. So this is how they do it. This is how they do it. And when you see like little kids didn't go to school or something back then, they had no choice but to like serve in the military back then. It was sad, man. They're just young. They're just young. They didn't have to suffer like this. They didn't have to go through all this mess. But the armies had to look at them and forced. They had to grow up, training, doing deadly training, deadly fighting training, combat, hand-to-hand combat, or just weapon-to-weapon combat. It's no choice. It's the military. It's fighting. It's survival fighting. And this is how they did it back then. Oh boy. I better be glad I wasn't from those decades, because I would have suffered a lot. You know? It would have been a nightmare for me. I tell you. If I was in the Rome and people had to force me to join the military, to join the forces, to go fight in the Coliseum combat sports, hey, I got no choice but to try my best. I fight, I win, I live another day. Or if I have one mistake, I lose, I get killed. So it's the end. That's it. You have only one life, one heart. And if that heart is stabbed, you die. You only have one life, not two lives. So you gotta survive with one life. And this is how they do it. They made weapons. They made a survival weapon to survive. To try their best, to struggle a lot. Fighting. Keep on fighting. Keep on training. And this is how they survive. It was not an easy one. Fighting. I always tell you guys on my other videos, fighting, it's not easy. You gotta try your best, man. You gotta be strong. If you fight lazy, you'll get beaten up. If you fight struggling, if you're struggling and fight and trying to fight quick, you will win. And that's the fact. That's the fact. People that be lazy and just fight and get tired, they will get beaten up. They will lose. But if you struggle and fight fast, very fast, I'm pretty sure you don't have to worry, because you will win the fight. I'll tell you. So it's not easy for these guys. This was the most gruesome and barbaric sports entertainment. Roman Coliseum and Gladiator. Yeah.
This animated documentary is brought to you by the New Historia store, the best in apparel for fans of mythology and the ancient world. Check out the brand new Ancient Rome collection, link in the description. At capacity, there'd be over 50,000 cheering, screaming fans in the arena at once. The energy would be palpable. It would have rivaled some of our best stadiums in terms of attendance, but our arena is empty. I apologize, I did try to put the full 50,000 digital spectators in the arena. I really did. 50,000 virtual Romans. My computer said, how dare you, that it set herself on fire. I'll upgrade so next time we'll have a little more company. In this documentary, you'll get to see exactly what the famous gladiators of the Colosseum looked like. If you want to see all of the known gladiators that fought in the arena, their equipment, strengths and weaknesses, this is the definitive video. By the end of this, you'll know everything there is to know about the different gladiators that battled in ancient Rome. You'll get to see the standard combatants, but also incredibly unorthodox, borderline outlandish fighters. The types that use exotic weapons, armor, and strategies most people have never even seen before. So, let's dim the lights and bring out our first gladiator. Samnite.
We hook up secretly. That's actually really smart.
Who is this?
Samnite gladiators were arguably the first class of gladiators. They were based on Samnian warriors after Rome conquered them in battle. Helmets of the Samnite would be heavy and visored, featuring a high crest with decorative feathers. Samnite gladiators would wear one protective greave on their leg, and their arms would be wrapped in leather or metal bands for additional protection. This arm guard is called a manica. Samnite swords were the infamous gladius, and their shields were called scutum. These two pieces of equipment are essentials that you'll see frequently today. Here's a really quick scutum and gladius 101, so we can get on to the other gladiators. This was the sword used by Rome to conquer the globe. The gladius is a short sword featuring two sharp cutting edges and a tapered point for stabbing. The sharp steel blade was incredibly deadly. These swords had a hilt with indentations on knobs that made it easier to grip.
It's very heavy.
This exceptional sword gave us our English word gladiator. A scutum was a generously sized, curved, rectangular shield. It was designed to be carried in one hand and was made of wood and leather. Its edges and center were reinforced with metal, and its large size made it useful in protecting almost the entire body. In close quarters, it was the perfect companion to the gladius. Soldiers hid behind their shields, got close and thrust their efficient gladius swords at the enemy. Let's go back to the Samnites for a sec. Something very strange happened to the Samnites. Samnites were a standard part of almost every show in the arena until they seemingly vanished from history. They completely disappeared from the record books, like ghosts. So why did they disappear from all records? This happened because of Samnium, the land where this type of gladiator came from. Rome did conquer Samnium, but many years of arena battles passed, and what had happened between Samnium and Rome all those years ago had now been forgotten. Samnium and Rome were now allies. They were now an important part of Roman society, but the problem was, in most fights, Samnites were still being positioned as the bad guys. The Romans solved this though. Samnite gladiators were removed from the roster and replaced with several similar gladiator classes. Samnites essentially became the foundation for most gladiators. Our next gladiator shares a whole lot with the Samnites. They too went through a strategic rebranding and emerged with some distinctly unique qualities. Gallus, Mormilo. The Celtic Gauls followed a similar story to the Samnites. Gaulish warriors inspired a new type of gladiator called the Gallus. Like the Samnites, they were very popular, so rather than removing them from the spectacle entirely, they would be renamed to Mormillo. Gallus gladiators looked remarkably similar to Samnites, with only a couple of changes occurring, morphing them into the Mormillo. Their name has origins in a Greek word meaning sea fish. Like many gladiators, a Gaul or Mormillo would be close to the equivalent of a heavyweight boxer. Their kit was not light, so it would be advantageous to be tall and strong. They had the standard loincloth, belt, scutum shield, gladius and manica, but their helmets featured feathered plumes and a large crest representing a dorsal fin. These helmets were sometimes very detailed with insignia, sculpture, and other intricate artwork. They definitely had a unique look with their silver armor, which was intended to represent the scales of a fish. Sagittarius.
Hello, you've reached 911.
The Colosseum, arena of blood and sand. Here, superstar gladiators would fight to the death in the ultimate action-adventure.
Barbarians battle.
The largest amphitheater in the classical world. It stands as a monument to Roman engineering genius.
No mercy.
But it was much more. A powerful tool for controlling the masses, and a showcase for proclaiming Rome's domination of the world. The brainchild of an upstart emperor, the story of the Colosseum's creation was as bloody and violent as the events staged within it.
Colosseum.
Rome, the beating heart
Classic
of the Roman
sport
Empire.
fighting.
Its rule stretched from Britain in the west to Syria in the east, making it the most powerful empire in the ancient world. The capital was home to more than 1 million people, a restless, volatile mob. To pacify them, one emperor would build the greatest arena the world had ever seen. This is the Colosseum. Here, the emperor staged the blockbuster entertainment of the day. But the Colosseum was about more than just gladiators.
The activities, the festivities, the music, the chants, the yells, the handouts of food and money. All of this would have just literally blown you away.
It was the largest freestanding amphitheater in the world.
Crushed up.
And the engineering required to build it was revolutionary. It took the genius of the Roman arch and they used it on a colossal scale.
At the time of its building, it was seen as better than the pyramids. It was Rome's answer to the most wonderful building in the entire world.
It pioneered the use of building materials still with us today and would prove the ultimate test of Roman ingenuity.
There was no telling whether this building in fact would work as a building. But this shows the supreme confidence of the Romans.
The story of the Colosseum's construction dates back 2,000 years.
2,000 years.
AD 68, the infamous Emperor Nero, a cruel dictator, rules Rome and its empire. Against the advice of his senators, he levies huge tax increases on Rome's citizens. The money goes to build a huge palace in the heart of Rome.
Cage, man.
Complete with a 36.5-meter tall bronze statue of Nero himself. But Nero's harsh tax regime angers people throughout the empire, and in Judea, it sparks a revolt. He calls on a general who has long been out of favor, a man who made his name in the conquest of Britain. The general's name is Vespasian.
Nero brings back Vespasian to put down the Jewish revolt, for the simple reason that Vespasian isn't a rival.
Dr. Ray Lawrence from the University of Birmingham in the UK believes that Vespasian was a calculated choice.
He's a humble person who's out of favour, therefore he's not seen as potentially dangerous.
Vespasian marches into Judea and builds a huge wall around the city of Jerusalem. But But 1 year later, Nero has lost his grip on power. The Senate, knowing that Rome's population will back them, declares Nero an enemy of the state. Rather than face execution, he commits suicide. Rome is in crisis. 3 emperors come and go in a welter of blood. The empire desperately needs a strong and credible leader. Powerful legions in Italy decide that Vespasian is the man for the job. The call spreads through Rome's provinces, from the Danube to Egypt, Syria, and finally reaches Vespasian in Judea. He held no ambition to be emperor, but now he answers the call. Vespasian enters Rome in triumph, and the Senate declares him emperor. But he must also win the hearts and minds of Rome's riotous mob. Most are unemployed and live on the handouts of a prosperous empire. He decides on a grand, crowd-pleasing gesture. Where Nero's golden palace had once stood, he will build a great palace of the people, a massive sporting arena for all of Rome.
The symbolism wouldn't have been lost on anyone.
Corey Brennan of Rutgers University is convinced that Vespasian's choice is no accident.
He knocked down the theme park that Nero built for himself, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, and built this magnificent amphitheater, which was meant to be visible from all across Rome.
Just like today, sports were hugely popular in the Roman world. None more so than gladiatorial games. But they played a much more fundamental role. They kept the idle mob happy and occupied. Bread and circuses was the Roman recipe for keeping the peace. Gladiatorial arenas were the entertainment multiplexes of their day. Amphitheaters were found in Italy, France, Spain, on the Danube and Rhine frontiers, and in far-flung Britain. But Rome itself had no permanent arena. Previous ones had been made out of wood, but Vespasian's new stadium would be built out of stone.
It was a combat sport.
Rome was one of the largest cities in the world. More than 1 million people filled its streets and tenements.
A real survival fight.
If only 1 in 20 were sports fans, that would still require a stadium that held 50,000 people. So Vespasian needed to build the grandest gladiatorial arena ever conceived, or risk disappointing the very mob it was designed to appease.
When he set out to build this, certainly he told his builders this has got to be the biggest, the most magnificent.
Darius Aria of the American Institute for Roman Culture is certain that scale was foremost in Vespasian's mind.
Contemporary with the construction of this amphitheater, there were other amphitheaters almost as large. So certainly Vespasian told his builders this had to be the biggest.
But the Colosseum wasn't just for the people. It would also help Vespasian's family, the Flavians, launch a new dynasty.
Vespasian, I'm convinced, wanted a family dynastic monument that was going to really proclaim that his family, the Flavian dynasty, was here to stay.
The emperor's agenda is clear in the Roman name of the Colosseum, the Flavian Amphitheater. Vespasian needed just under 2.5 hectares of level ground for the foundations. The eastern wing of Nero's Golden Palace was no good because it was on a slope. And to the south stood a great temple to the Emperor Claudius. The only suitable area was filled with an ornamental lake. It looked as if Vespasian's plans were thwarted before he had even begun. His solution was characteristically ambitious. He would simply remove the lake.
You think of the entire building project, from designing it to implementing it. Then you have to erase a structure that was here previously. You've got to drain out the lake. That's a Herculean effort.
How could the Romans manage such a monumental task? Before Vespasian's engineers could even start building the Colosseum, they had to reclaim a lake the size of more than 5 football pitches. Archaeologists have discovered that the builders dug a vast trench nearly 50 meters wide around the lake, sinking it to 6 meters below the lake bed. They lined the trench with stone walls 3 meters thick and filled the space between them with waterproof cement. Finally, they drained the lake through an existing channel that funneled water into the river Tiber.
I bet they never get tired.
More than a kilometer away. It was a massive undertaking, especially
until
since
they
the
were
Romans had
half
to
dead.
work without the aid of machines.
Because there was a lot of hard work.
Hundreds of tons of earth was hauled with ox and donkey carts.
Lots of hard work, man.
The Roman ox cart can take half a ton of earth in it.
They needed a break.
You would be taking that to
They
the
needed
river Tiber to put it in
at least
barge.
get something
You would
to
need
eat or
in the
drink
region of
and get back to work.
400,000 ox cart
Because that's
journeys
hard
just
work,
to
man.
remove the soil
Building up
before you
a
even bring
big
in any building materials to the site.
Yet
ever in
once
the
lake
whole
was
wide
empty,
world.
the challenge wasn't over.
Damn.
They had to find a way to stop rainwater flooding the arena. The solution? A vast network of drains that would constantly channel water out of the structure as it was being
That's how
built.
big they built it. No lie.
To ensure an efficient flow of water, Vespasian's engineers had to slope the drains at a gradient of 2.5%. If the angle of the incline is too shallow, the water doesn't drain away. If it is too great, it backs up and the water simply pools. The answer was ingenious but simple. The engineers poured water into a grooved wooden board to make a rudimentary spirit level, called a chorobate. Once they had a perfect horizontal line above ground, they simply measured down to work out the course of the drains below. The result? Drain pipes sloped at just the right angle.
Wow.
In this way, Vespasian's engineers created a system of drainage channels over 3 kilometers long, which funnels water from all over the Colosseum to 4
way
massive
back
storm
then,
drains.
it was
that
hard
flow
to
out from
find
the center.
electronics. They all had to use wood.
Conduits to collect water were arranged all
Until
around the
decades
Colosseum.
passed, they tried to
The
find
water
something
flushed
to
out
use
so quickly,
to build
it was 38
electronics.
gallons a second, which is
But way
60
back then, we
bathtubs
didn't
full.
have no electronics.
And all this would
Nothing.
eventually end up
Nothing
in the
yet.
Great Sewer of Rome,
We only
the
had to
Cloaca
use wood
Maxima.
and sticks and stones to build something,
With the foundation
to make
set,
a house,
Vespasian could start
to
building
make
the stadium.
weapons for survival, to make
He needed 2 things on a
stagecoaches.
scale never seen before:
Damn, for the horses.
manpower and money. But the
Chairs.
extravagant Nero had bankrupted the empire,
Wooden
and Vespasian's
tables.
bid for the throne had drained his finances. Where could he turn?
But decades pass.
The answer would enslave a people.
Maybe we had to
bring a
use
temple
metal
crashing
to
down.
make electronics. I don't know. Either metal or plastic together to make electronics. And that's how they
Vespasian
make cars and
is at a crossroads.
screen
He
TVs,
desperately needs money to
cell
build his
phones,
Colosseum,
guns,
but raising taxes could turn ordinary Romans against him.
guns, electronics,
Luckily for him, his son Titus is still besieging Jerusalem,
guitars,
famous
which is
for its
music
temple
instruments.
treasures. In September AD 70, Titus assaults the city. After a bitter resistance, Jerusalem falls. Much of it is burned to the ground, and the legendary treasures of the
Damn.
temple on the mount are carted back to Rome.
The amount of money which comes from the sack of Jerusalem is enormous. We hear about in Vespasian's triumph that there is cart after cart of booty. There are wondrous things like candlesticks. All the treasure of the taxes which the Jews had paid to the temple are now in Vespasian's hands.
Soldiers march tens of thousands of Jews back to Rome as slaves. There is a popular myth that they were forced to work on the Colosseum, but the truth is more complex.
So it's not really likely that You just bring over a huge workforce of 30,000 Jews and have them build the Colosseum. That would have taken too long. It would have taken too long to train them. And this is not about on-the-job training in the Colosseum. It was all about being efficient and fast and getting it done.
The real value of the slaves to Vespasian was money. 30,000 Jewish prisoners entered Rome in chains. They were put on public parade and auctioned.
They were sold.
And there was a ready market. Slaves were an integral part of Roman life. A rich family might own several hundred, but even the average citizen could afford a house slave.
The Romans can't imagine a world without slaves. Slaves are part of their lives and it's part of their society. It's their expectation. If you sell 30,000 slaves, you get a huge amount of money. It would buy the labour of a third of the population of Rome for a whole year. It is something which then he can cash in on.
And Vespasian would need every penny to pay for his Colosseum.
The Romans were consummately well organized.
Professor Michael Davis is an architectural historian from Mount Holyoke College in the United States. He is in no doubt about the manpower required.
It's been estimated that perhaps as many as a quarter of the population of Rome was involved in some way or other.
Rome's engineers were accomplished builders, but this would be their greatest challenge. They needed an amphitheater big and strong enough to hold over 50,000 people without collapsing under its own weight.
Will people trade their pizza for a Popeye's family meal?
Would you be willing?
The solution lay in three key architectural innovations that form the secret of Rome's great monuments. The most important is the arch.
The arch is an almost perfect design for bearing heavy loads, and that design is so simple. A series of wedge-shaped blocks is assembled together in a semicircular form and supported on top of two pillars at the side. The weight of the building is absorbed by the keystone in the center of the arch and distributed evenly over the entire span of the arch and then down into the two side pillars.
Territories conquered by Rome to work the mines, till the fields, or fight for the crowd's entertainment. A nomadic Thracian from what is now Bulgaria, he had served in the Roman army but was imprisoned for desertion. His name was Spartacus. Spartacus had been brought to Capua by Batiatus, a lanista, or trainer of gladiators, and life at the ludus, or gladiator school, was unforgiving. New recruits were forced to swear an oath to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword, and to obey their master's will without question. But even harsh discipline couldn't break Spartacus's spirit. In 73 BCE, Spartacus led 73 other slaves to seize knives and skewers from the kitchen and fight their way out, hijacking a wagon of gladiator equipment along the way. They were done fighting for others. Now, they fought for their freedom. When the news reached Rome, the Senate was too busy with wars in Spain and the Pontic Empire to worry about some unruly slaves. Unconcerned, Praetor Claudius Glaber took an army of 3,000 men to the rebels' refuge at Mount Vesuvius and blocked off the only passage up the mountain. All that remained was to wait and starve them out, or so he thought. In the dead of night, the rebels lowered themselves down the cliffside on ropes made from vines and flanked Glaber's unguarded camp.
Surviving.
Thus began the legend of Rome's defiant gladiator.
They were
As
served
news of
in
the
the
rebellion
army.
spread, its
The Roman
ranks
army.
swelled with escaped slaves, deserting soldiers, and hungry peasants. Many were untrained, but Spartacus's clever tactics transformed them into an effective guerrilla force.
Yep.
A second
fighter.
Roman expedition led by Praetor Varinius
They had
was
no
ambushed
choice.
while the officer bathed. To elude
They
the
were sitting
remaining
at home
Roman
being
forces,
lazy,
the rebels
and
used their
they had no
enemies'
choice but to
corpses
do a
as
hobby.
decoy guards,
And the hobby
stealing
was
Varinius' own horse to
being
aid their
a
escape.
soldier and surviving in any fight or struggles.
And policy of distributing spoils equally, Spartacus continued attracting followers and gained control of villages where new weapons could be forged. The Romans soon realized they were no longer facing ragtag fugitives, and in the spring of 72 BCE, the Senate retaliated with the full force of 2 legions. The rebels left victorious, but many lives were lost in the battle, including Spartacus's lieutenant, Crixus. To honor him, Spartacus held funeral games, forcing his Roman prisoners to play the role his fellow rebels had once endured. By the end of 72 BCE, Spartacus's army was a massive force of roughly 120,000 members, but those numbers proved difficult to manage. With the path to the Alps clear, Spartacus wanted to march beyond Rome's borders, where his followers would be free. But his vast army had grown brash. Many wanted to continue pillaging, while others dreamed of marching on Rome itself. In the end, the rebel army turned south, foregoing what would be their last chance at freedom. Meanwhile, Marcus Licinius Crassus had assumed control of the war. As Rome's wealthiest citizen, he pursued Spartacus with 8 new legions, eventually trapping the rebels in the toe of Italy. After failed attempts to build rafts and a stinging betrayal by local pirates, the rebels made a desperate run to break through Crassus's lines, but it was no use. Roman reinforcements were returning from the Pontic Wars, and the rebels' ranks and spirits were broken. In 71 BCE, they made their last stand. Spartacus nearly managed to reach Crassus before being cut down by centurions. His army was destroyed, and 6,000 captives were crucified along the Appian Way, a haunting demonstration of Roman authority. Crassus won the war, but it is not his legacy which echoes through the centuries. Thousands of years later, the name of the slave who made the world's mightiest empire tremble has become synonymous with freedom and the courage to fight for it.
Gladiator.
Find out more about life in ancient Rome with this playlist.
Rome. There's the gladiators. Gladiators. This is how we do it. Ancient Rome, gladiator, engage in a fight. In a deadly fight. Fight of survival. So thanks for watching this philosophy. And I hope I see you in the next video of our philosophy. And as we know it, many of years ago, they fight and fight and fight. It was not an easy sight. It was not a pretty sight to watch. Watch their enemies die in cold blood. They had no choice but to fight for their freedom, fight for their country, make their country to be united again, make it strong again. But this is how it is when it comes to wars in history. Wars has always been here since decades ago. And we don't know. We may never know. Will it last again in this day? Wars are everywhere, bro. You just gotta survive. It should not be like this. Being in any fight is bad, especially a deadly one. It's not good to fight unless it's for your own good and survival. That's why we rather have peace more than war. But this is how it is. When it comes to your warriors, your barbarians as well, standing up for what's right, and standing up for their emperors and fighting back. That's how they do it. They made a lot of weapons to prove it, to prove that they're stronger, to prove that they can do this. Some of them want to fight just to think that they're stronger than everyone and think that they're most invincible of them all. But it's not. At the end of the day, real fighting is not easy. This is my philosophy here, explaining it to you. Real fighting, especially a deadly one, is not easy to win. You're going against someone that's trying to kill you so fast. You better know what you're doing before you get murdered or killed. In a dangerous position, you're in a dangerous trap. But this is how it is. They made a lot of weapons to prove it. A lot of weapons. You only have one life. You only have one life. If you get cut, you bleed. But if you get a deep cut, you bleed it all out. But you have to hold it. You have to hold it for a long time to keep your blood in your system. Otherwise, you're gonna die in a slow, painful death. And this is how they made weapons. The weapons are more stronger than the human body. One slash on it, and it's over. One big slash on it, and it's over. For any fight. They made a lot of swords. A lot of strong iron swords that is so damn sharp. You even poke at it, poke at the ends, you can get a pretty nasty cut, and you have to get a band-aid because that's how sharp it is. It's for a weapon of survival, weapon that you need to fight for your life, fight for your family, fight for your country, and fight for your village. But this is how it is, man. Fights like this is so gory and nasty. The fans like it, and they call it a sport. I mostly call it this. The Coliseum fights, Gladiators, a survival fight challenge, not a sport, but they say it's a sport. They build it for the fans to watch to see these guys get really hurt. They get really hurt in there, to see these guys get extremely murdered. Extremely terminated, and to the point where they have to beg for mercy before they die. But this is how it is, and we don't wonder why they made these weapons. You want to wonder why they made these weapons? Why they made these weapons? It's because the reason why they made these weapons is because sometimes people want to invade their country badly. They want to destroy it. They want to take their land, or they want to kill them off too. Take over their land. But either one, it's either they want to make these weapons for protection, or for revenge, or for pleasure and smile, and they just beat people up with it for no reason. But either one, they had to make these weapons. Make these weapons for a reason. And it often says right here, I'm going to read this last one for my history philosophy of the day, posted by Gladiator, July 3, 2020, posted. And it says right here, often viewed as a working class hero of the Roman society. The Romans as the Roman army fighting for what's right. Sometimes they fight for what's wrong, and some of them killing those innocent guys, innocent people for no reason, for no apparent reason. And they look like they need to be in school, or they're just good people and they're just getting brutalized by some soldiers back then. So the Roman society, the gladiators have surely seen their fair share. There's a screen time. Our modern gladiators have our modern day popular media. Sorry. However, beyond grand spectacles in bloody feats, the very nature of the gladiatorial contest endure in the institutionalization of violence and ingrained in the Roman society since the tribal days. Since this tribal day. So without further ado, let us take the genre of the regions of the history of the Roman gladiators that go beyond of the realm of the gladiation to account for brutal reality. And this was real times. Real times, man. It was a bad struggle for these guys when it comes to the Roman Empire. I'm gonna read these two last ones. I will tell you. The picture of how I started. I think these were little children, and they were like forced to like join the army. They had no choice. They were scared to join because it was too gruesome. Not only the war was bad, but it was too brutal. I thought they was gonna only join in something small, but it's still about fighting, like boxing, kickboxing, wrestling. But something that's so big and so gruesome, and it's just about things that are in the wild or for the streets. When it comes to fighting, and they have to do what they gotta do to kill their enemy to survive before they get killed last. They have to kill them first before they get killed last. Yeah, man, it was sad. It's sad that they had to join. I feel sorry for them, and I feel sorry for the ones that didn't want to join, but they had to force them. So it says right here, in what might have been the producer of the latter-day gladiator combat, and a nobleman named Nobise made his death wish in 264 BC that his two sons should pay for combats that will take place in the marketplace to make his funeral. Some of them had to be killed or killed himself. This was a death trap, like I said. Yo, that is not good. They have to serve their master no matter what happens. If they made one mistake, they're gonna die. That's how it is in wars when you join in them. Mark replied, so make Mark his funeral, and unless then 100 years such contests became pretty commonplace, and the combats combatants were generally slaves of the organizer. In fact, in 174 BC, one of the number of a ritualistic service dedicated to the dead. It involved 74 men put against each other and in a gruesome event that took place over the 3 days. Yeah, look at it. This is what it is. So, and as time went by, memorable aspects in scopes to include spectacles like a vento, which entailed the haunting of the hundreds of the exotic animals across the Roman lands by the trained vendors. There was a symbolic side to this grisly affair, with the animals like lions, tigers, and other predators dueling the savages of the barbarians of the world that mighty Rome had subjugated interestingly enough, the Mongols also had a similar type of hunting ritual that involves the tentacle killing of the innocent beasts. So this is how it is, but if you're gonna fight 100,000 men, 74 men, almost to about a good 84,000 armies in there that's trying to attack you all at once, or if you got your armies with you, your teammates with you, then you'll be lucky. You might survive, even though it's gonna be hard for you guys, because number one, your fear is gonna be coming up on you, and it's gonna tell you that you're gonna fight, and then it clicks off. Your fear clicks off. You're just gonna run out there and beat them up all. The intensity on your body begins to click on. You and your teammate. Also the guys. Also your enemies. That clicks it on. fear and terror. It clicks it on fight or flight challenge to survive. But it's in the arena, so you got a trap. You got a trap. All you gotta do is fight it out. All you gotta do is survive. Fight until the end. Until you have to survive in any battle. Any battle wave. It's not easy, man. It's not easy, bro. If they say it like we only got 30 waves to go through in any death fight, you have to go through it. If you lost, you get killed. If you win them all, you survived. And it goes for any battle in that arena. Any battle in that arena. So yeah, bro. This is not easy when you have to deal with something like this, especially when you're going to fight these guys. Even when they got their little pets with them. They got their little wild pets that is running after you as well. You gotta kill them. You gotta kill them as well. The lions and tigers, the jaguars, predators. Kill them all as well. They're inside the arena. They're inside the cage, man. People that have to watch the action. They have to watch the fun of the action. It's not easy. It's been years. Many of years ago. Back in the 1st century to the 1st century, 8th century. All these centuries ago, there were wars. Classic ones. Wars, man. They even make sport wars. First time hearing about, our very first time hearing about a sport that is involved with killing. Involved with violent fighting. With weapons in it. And that's the Gladiator games. They must have called it the Olympic Games. Back in Roman times. In Italy. But this is how it is. And as I show you back on the picture. This is how they fight. They fight so barbaric and gruesome and deadly enough to prove their point. Is what they're doing. Yeah, prove their point. Yeah, the spectacles in the ancient Rome, killing or being killed by. And I can tell you now, this is a lot of reading, and I can tell you now that this is a survival method. You gotta do what you gotta do, otherwise you'll be in a death trap, and that's the end of your life. They had struggled a lot. When it comes to warriors, all you gotta do, bro, is give them those respect. Respect these warriors. But these were the type of warriors that you should have lost the respect of. I'm sorry. Because I think most of them were just building the arena to put the innocents, force them to fight, have no choice, force them to fight in the Olympic Games, in the Colosseum Roman fighting games, and what they call it. And it was a deadly one, a deadly sport fight that involves with weapons and wild animals in it. It's like a horror. They had to deal with a lot of horror back then. Some of them look like Greeks. Spartans, and they had to fight as well. So these are the Roman Colosseum. You can call this the Roman MMA, but with weapons. Yeah. It was killing, is what it is. They had to fight until someone got killed. So it's like, yeah, man, this is not good. But that's the history of it. And as it was built today, it started to look like this now. Maybe it was destroyed, or got crushed, or got crushed up. But yeah, man, the Roman Colosseum and the Roman Colosseum today. And what we experienced that was back then was horrifying and gruesome and barbaric. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed my philosophy of today, of the history of back then. And archaeologists had experienced a lot of what's going on. Back in centuries ago. Centuries ago, there were no electronics. There were just feathers and wood, and steel back then to make as clothes and weapons. And killing animals for food to eat. If they're hungry enough. So they don't have to starve. But this is how it is. So yeah, man. You can check it out. And that's my history of the day of ancient Rome and the Gladiator. And it's fighting. It's deadly, gruesome, barbaric fighting of them all. The most electrifying, the most extreme death trap ever you can ever find is only in the Colosseum. When it comes to real fight, you find it in the Colosseum, where they put weapons and animals in it, wild animals in it, to fight it out, to survive in any fight. But that's how you gotta do it. When your life is at risk, and you got these weapons, and your pet right there to save you, and your armies to save you, and your shield to protect you. All you gotta do is fight. Fight, 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 until the end, until it's over. Until your horror is over. Until your nightmares is over. You gotta fight and fight. Do what you gotta do in that Colosseum, because it's a death trap. So, thanks for watching. See you in the next philosophy or next history video about archaeology and human history. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.